Exceptional player status is a relatively recent invention. Starting in 2005-2006, the Canadian Hockey League started taking notice of younger teens who were far more skilled and prepared to take on stronger competition than their age group. Highly touted talents in U16 travel divisions have been allowed to apply to join Canadian major juniors early, after which they're assessed by professional scouts and league executives on their on-ice performance, off-ice character, and academic standing. And so, while the minimum age to play in any of the CHL leagues remains 16, there have been 9 talents who were allowed to start playing at 15 years old. All but one of these players have gone on to play in the National Hockey League, but not all of them have achieved the same level of success. And today, as we gear up for welcoming a new member of this prestigious club to the NHL in 2027, I'd say it's proper time to start looking at how each of them have panned out in the NHL so far. But before we get into this, as per usual, this video is made 100% by me without the use of any artificial intelligence. I write, record, edit, and produce everything here myself. This is purely a one-person operation. So if you want to uplift the integrity of independent content here on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and leave a comment down below to boost this video in the algorithm. Now let's start with number 8. As much as it sucks to say, I don't think any exceptional prospect can pan out as poorly as Sean Day. This is definitely the primo example of how this distinction can backfire by pushing someone into the deep end. With amazing performances in his AAA days that had him over a point per game at one point, he was elevated in 2013 to play for the Mississauga Steelheads of the OHL. However, that elevation may have been Day's sunset. You suck! Yeah, I'll be here all week. The competition elevated, but Day never did, having a particularly weak draft year in Mississauga, falling to 81st overall, where he was selected by the New York Rangers. A purportedly bad attitude proved to be toxic to any team looking to take a chance on him. And while he did right the ship a few years later, it took him 3 teams to fully unlock his potential, moving to the Windsor Spitfires in 2017, and then to the Kingston Frontenacs in 2018, where he finally showcased his offensive potential with a point-per-game season. Unfortunately, it all proved to be a day late and a buck short. A decade after being drafted, Sean Day has been involved in a grand total of 2 National Hockey League games. 5 years ago, during COVID, 21 minutes 25 seconds total, -2. He spent more time with HV71 in Sweden than he has on an NHL roster. It sucks that such a talent has fallen so far, but it's as the story goes, hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work hard. Number 7. This decision was difficult for a time because it came down to a question of what I rank lower, higher talent being squandered or worse talent in general. But after looking through their careers again, I had no qualms with putting Joe Veleno at the 7th spot on this list. Hilariously enough, I had him at the number 6 spot until during editing, when I reconciled the fact that, yeah, of all the exceptional players, he is by far the worst still in the show. Sorry, Joe. Strong performances in the QM AAA Lac St. Louis and a 10-point showing for Team Quebec at the Canadian Winter Games saw him getting the distinction and spending a few years in Drummondville of the Q. Veleno showcased throughout his time in juniors that he had some of the best ice vision in the CHL. While his scoring was never as explosive as some of the others, his two-way game was nearly unparalleled. However, there was certainly a hitch that indicated that he couldn't translate to the NHL game. First-round picks aren't usually spent on those who can't elevate as much as desired. He was a safe pick. One that would be able to slot in quickly, but the floor and ceiling were so close you couldn't even stand up in it. Detroit took the chance on him at 30th overall in 2018, which he responded to by putting up his absolute best season in Drummondville. However, as feared, it fell apart for him as soon as he made the NHL. Lapses in his ice vision have been the hallmark of the knocks against Veleno for his professional career. His play will sometimes have you thinking he has some of the best instincts in the game for a bottom sixer. Then he'll blow himself completely out of position and be responsible for a completely preventable goal. The 1-year stint in Montreal didn't do him any favors, and now he's likely on the 4th line for the Rangers for the next year. Who knows what's going to happen afterwards. Number 6. The sad part of this list is that since I am primarily going off of what these players have accomplished in the NHL, I do have to adjust the rankings based on longevity. And unfortunately, although I think he can get as high as potentially number 4 on this list, that does mean that Michael Misa is going to have to spend some time at number 6. But before we can see where he's going or where he's at, let's look at where he's been. After an insane OHL Cup performance with AAA Mississauga, where he had more points than Connor McDavid to set the record for most points in the tournament's history, he spent 3 years with the Saginaw Spirit of the OHL, and got better every season. With an elusiveness that could enter the offensive zone nearly at will, constant movement away from the puck to gain the advantage, and skating as smooth as butter, He was one of the best playmakers in all of Canadian juniors, eventually culminating in an incredible 2025, with 62 goals, 72 assists, and 134 points in 65 games. However, he was nudged out of the first overall selection for the New York Islanders by a little defenseman by the name of Matthew Schaefer. Despite being out for about half the season with varying injuries, Schaefer had shown strong offensive upside from the blue line, as well as having the defensive prowess to take Erie from a middling core to a powerhouse all on his lonesome. As such, Misa was bumped down to second overall to be scooped up by the San Jose Sharks. And though he performed amazingly at World Juniors that year with a point per game, the translation to the NHL proper has been a bit bumpier, with 9 goals, 12 assists, and 21 points in 41 games. Lingering injuries throughout the season kept him sidelined and prevented him from showcasing his greater abilities. On a team with Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, Igor Chernyshov, and now Ivar Stenberg, I think once Misa gets himself healthy, we're going to see a side of him we're never going to forget. Number 5. As for the higher talent being squandered, you know exactly where this was going. Or did you? Because talent getting squandered is a pretty easy distinction to make for a couple of these players, but I don't think it's more apparent than with Shane Wright, a player gifted with such incredible talents, only to have it go in service to a team that routinely feels like the most inept clown show. The elevation from an outstanding U16 AAA season with Don Mills to the Kingston Frontenacs of the OHL was met with incredible success, with a 66-point rookie season. However, this is where things get a bit murky. The OHL canceled the entire 2020-2021 season for what I would consider a solid reason. And it's not like Wright rested on his laurels either. He still had World Juniors to attend. A World Juniors tournament he lit up like a damn Christmas tree, sporting a 9-5-14 stat line in just 5 games. One more season with Kingston in 2021-2022 had him putting up 94 points, but with some naysayers questioning the consistency of his scoring, his previously undisputed number 1 prospect ranking was now very much being disputed. This became evident after he fell completely out of the lottery picks, landing at 4th overall to be picked up by Seattle Kraken. Has it worked out for him in the Emerald City? Well, yes and no. Wright's explosive speed and shot creation has had him as the asset on the entire Kraken roster with the highest potential. However, he's being handled by Seattle, a team whose coaching history includes Dave Hackstall, Dan Bilesma, and now, for some unjustifiable reason, Lane Lambert in 2026. Their team has never been constructed in a way that makes sense, and nearly every strong prospect has severely underperformed in their confines. Matty Beniers is okay, but much worse than what he could be on a team that cared about roster construction. Riker Evans is okay, but much worse than what he could be on a team that cared about roster construction. Shane Wright is okay, but much worse than he could be on a team that cared about roster construction, and I'm fairly certain I'm going to be saying the same thing, if not worse, about Berkeley Catton. That was a bad rookie season for him. But as it pertains to Wright, he seems to think the same for himself, having just requested a trade earlier this offseason. I was kind of pounding the pavement for the Bruins to trade Zacha for Wright in 7th overall. Maybe a bit of an underpayment? Then again, it is Botterill at the helm there. We probably could have done that. Number 4. Number 4 is a special case amongst the compendium of exceptional player status prospects, as he is the only one to have won a Stanley Cup. Yes, my friends, is the first defenseman to be granted the distinction, your favorite injured legend, Aaron Ekblad. His time in AAA Sun County was defined by having some of the best defensive instincts amongst his age group, with the aid of a howitzer of a shot on the power play, resulting in an early elevation to Barry in the OHL. While his speed wasn't exactly blowing anyone away or facilitating offensive zone entries, he was a master at keeping the puck in, and scoring the cheeky goal from the blue line from time to time, emphasized by a 23-goal outing in his draft year of 2014. As with a lot of these players, he immediately made the jump to Florida's defensive core, where he's enjoyed plenty of success. Getting Norris votes in your rookie season is no joke, and Ekblad has showcased time and time again that that wasn't a fluke, topping out at 6th in the trophies voting in 21-22. Obviously, he's also been the benefactor of a Florida team that is dedicated to hitting you with the go-to-sleep every single game. But his presence on the defensive core there has been a key component in back-to-back Stanley Cup wins. Stanley Cup wins that were initially in doubt because, as stated before, Ekblad can't stay perfectly healthy all that much anymore. 2 of the past 3 seasons have seen him be relegated to fewer than 60 games. Do I have doubts about his future? Not really, so long as he can stay off the IR. He can still be a wicked strong asset, even going into his age 30 season. Make no mistake. Number 3. You know the moment I knew it was all over for Connor Bedard?
Western Hockey League, Connor Bedard.
Right there. All jokes aside, we should go through this the way we have been. West Vancouver Prep was his stomping grounds for him to go nuclear. 84 points in 36 games parlayed perfectly into his time with the Regina Pats of the WHL. Now, his first season was during COVID year, but unlike the OHL, the WHL instead opted for an abbreviated 24-game season. And despite only playing in 15 of those games, Bedard showcased that he could succeed no matter how many games were played, with 28 points across those 15 games. Like with most of these players, Bedard's ice vision and elusiveness were almost unmatched, with some going as far to consider him already to be one of the greatest talents to ever lace him up before being drafted. And the 143-point season and the 23-point World Junior performance he put up in his draft year certainly made the case for that. But how has it panned out for him since getting drafted? Well, at least he's doing well. Turns out, in 2021, Chicago had another disease it needed to purge from its ranks, and so a lot of people, myself included, were thrown off by them winning the lottery in 2023. Regardless of whether or not this was a PR stunt, Bedard went to a team that was almost a decade out from the last time they had seriously contended, and had just blown up a solid retool. Not to mention, he was soon to become one half of the new Sid vs. Ovi debate, with Macklin Celebrini strutting onto the scene the very next year. And this has been the biggest problem with properly assessing Bedard's performance, because he's been amazing for the Blackhawks, with 203 points in 219 games. The only problem is he's been compared to Gretzky since day one, and is now being compared to Macklin, and since he hasn't been the better of either of those comparisons, some people believe him to be a little bit overhyped. Generational talent is a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, and I've been guilty of that myself. But make no mistake, Bedard is worthy of it. But on a team like Chicago? Kyle Davidson, what are you doing, man? Number 2. Pajama Boy, the one to have started exceptional player status to begin with. John Tavares. Do they still hate this dude on Long Island? Owls fans, if you exist, let me know down below. His work in AAA Toronto makes his groundbreaking distinction all too apparent. Keeping back-to-back 150-point seasons sequestered in AAA for another year just doesn't make sense, so they elevated him to the OHL, where he'd play with Oshawa. But this was back in 2006, surely he'd be a little bit out of his depth, right? Well, the distinction has stuck around for a reason, no? Tavares continued to tear up all of juniors, with a sophomore season of 72 goals. His pinpoint puck handling made him a scoring threat on almost every single possession, and his 200-foot game was also something to behold, eventually winning the David Branch Player of the Year award. After arguments arose prior to the 2009 draft as to whether he'd be taken first or Swedish defenseman Victor Hedman, the Islanders put the discussion to rest by taking him with the first overall pick. The doubts people had about his quick surge were slightly vindicated right out the gate, as he ended up in 5th in Calder voting, but since then he's never slowed down. For nigh on a decade, he was the captain of the Islanders, and even though they never went far in the playoffs under his direction, he made everyone from Nassau County to the very tip of the island proud. Until he got homesick. After pledging his love for Long Island and refusing being traded, the opportunity to come play for his hometown Toronto Maple Leafs came a-knockin'. 7 years at $11 million per year is lavish, and an offer he couldn't refuse. Since going back up to the Six, he's certainly been at the forefront of a lot of press, as one of the members of the core four between him, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, and someone else who I can't really remember right now. But of the four, Tavares has been the one that Leafs fans seem to argue about the least, because he shows up, does his job, doesn't do anything flashy, and clocks out. As one of the best players on their roster the past 8 years, he's been a rock of stability on a franchise wrought with chaos. He's turned in some really good seasons too. Even in his age 35 season, when people thought he'd be cooked, he still posted a solid 71-point campaign. Take care of him, Toronto. He won't turn his back on you. Don't do it to him. Number 1. Process of elimination is a bitch, isn't it? Yeah, you knew this one was going to be Connor McDavid, McDavo, McJesus, the chosen one. The only one in this lineup to have never posted a season under a point per game, dating all the way back to his U16 days. It was pretty evident the moment that he put up 200 points in AAA Toronto that he'd be one of the best to ever do it. Once elevated to the Erie Otters, he continued his tear. Insane speed, playmaking ability, and elusive shot won him the David Branch, not only for an insane 120 points in just 47 games, but 49 points in the Memorial Cup playoffs, winning him MVP of the tournament pretty handily. Add on some insane World Juniors performances, and his first overall selection is pretty cut and dry. Unfortunately, he has the great displeasure of playing for the biggest boys club in the National Hockey League, the Edmonton Oilers. Despite being easily the greatest player to lace him up since Lemieux retired, he's consistently been held back by a front office stuck in the 80s, which is part of the reason why he hasn't won a cup. No defense to help him, no depth to help him. It's kind of surprising that Jack Eichel was the one to need back surgery from this draft class, considering how much McDavid has been carrying around his team to relevance for the past decade. Being the 4th fastest player to have ever hit the 1,000-point mark, McDavid has won the Hart Trophy 3 times at this point and the Art Ross 6 times. When you're insane enough to crack the 100-point threshold in a season shortened to 56 games, you're something special. First 100 assist season since the Great One. First 150-point season since Lemieux. And did I mention he's done this all before the age of 30? If McDavid were to retire today, he'd still go down as the best of this generation by a country mile. The only thing that can really be hoped for with Connor is that he gets saved from the hellhole of Edmonton so he can win a cup on a real team. Ah shit, there's one more I gotta talk about. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the most recent addition to the list of exceptions. Tearing up U18 Edge School Prep got Landon Dupont up to Everett in the WHL early. And unlike the previous 2 defensemen to be granted the status, Dupont's strength seems to be a genuinely strong offensive game. While Ekblad has a killer of a shot still, it's still seen as generally a complement to his skill set, rather than a key component. And well, let's go back to Dupont. Dupont's offense is near immaculate. Puck handling that can facilitate offensive zone entries, aggression on every single play, amazing on breakouts. The only knock against him so far is he's still pretty raw to some extent, and is prone to the occasional poor decision. But like, who among us at 17 wasn't making poor decisions? With back-to-back 60-point seasons in the WHL, including a 23-point trip to the Memorial Cup, if this is Dupont at his most unrefined, I can only imagine how he'll stack up after a year or 2 in Michigan. Who knows? We might have to revisit this in a few years. All we know now is that this kid is going to be a problem at the NHL level. Hey, did you like that video? I bet you did because you got to the end of it. We're trying to make this a community to talk about the wonderful game of hockey. So if you like this video, why not scan the QR code next to me to join the official channel Discord? I know the NHL season is over, but we're going to be doing watch-alongs when games start back up in 2026 and 2027. We're going to be doing game nights. We're going to have a fun time here in the den. So give it a scan, or click the link in the description below. And if you extra want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. For a little more than a Costco hot dog a month, you'll get access to the members-only section of the Discord, prime real estate in my end slates, and every video essay one day early. Till next time, this is Bex from Into the Den, signing off.